For the first time, it held. Not survival, but something close enough to believe in. This is Project Anoxia, Chapter 11, Stability Window. The first stable group lasted 3 hours. No one had lasted that long before. At 600 UTC, multiple synchronized clusters across different cities maintained consistent respiration patterns without disruption. Their breathing remained aligned with the external signal, precise, measured, uninterrupted. For the first time since the onset, conditions did not worsen. They did not improve, but they held. At 640 UTC, the realization spread within those groups. This could work. Not survival, but continuation. At 710 UTC, Layla Rahmani remained within one of these clusters. 12 individuals, no communication, no movement beyond necessity. They breathed together. The air remained thin but consistent. The pressure in the chest did not increase. For the first time since the beginning, there was no escalation. At 800 UTC, the pattern continued. No deviation, no removals. At 8:30 UTC, Layla observed something unexpected. The unknown gas concentration had stabilized, not decreased, but no longer increasing at the previous rate. She wrote one final note: system equilibrium achieved at reduced human variability. She read it once, then did not write again. At 9:15 UTC, similar conditions were observed elsewhere. Independent groups, same outcome, stability. At 1000 UTC, the idea formed, not spoken, not shared, but present. This might be enough. At 1040 UTC, one group attempted expansion. They allowed one additional individual to join. The person matched the rhythm perfectly. For several minutes, nothing changed. Then, a shift, subtle. Breathing across the group became slightly strained. Not immediate failure, but deviation. At 1047 UTC, the group corrected, adjusted. The strain reduced, but did not disappear. At 11 o'clock UTC, the conclusion formed. Capacity was fixed, no growth, only maintenance. At 11:30 UTC, another group attempted the same. Their result was different. The added individual failed to maintain perfect synchronization. The disruption spread instantly. The group collapsed within minutes. At 12 o'clock UTC, the stability window was understood. It was real, but fragile. At 1240 UTC, the acoustic signal changed, not in structure, in duration. 72 seconds, then repeat, no variation. At 1310 UTC, Layla recognized the implication. The system was still evolving, not stabilizing, refining. At 1345 UTC, she looked at the group around her. Their breathing was perfect, but not natural. No one adjusted, no one hesitated. Even slight variation had disappeared. At 1420 UTC, something else changed. Fatigue, not physical, neurological. Maintaining perfect rhythm required attention, constant, unbroken. At 1500 UTC, the first lapse occurred. A single delayed inhale, less than a second. The effect was immediate. The group destabilized. Not completely, but enough. At 1502 UTC, correction was attempted. The individual could not recover. They were removed. The group stabilized again, but something had changed. At 1530 UTC, Layla understood. Stability required perfection. Perfection required focus. Focus could not be sustained indefinitely. At 1600 UTC, the first stable group lost a second member, not due to misalignment, due to exhaustion. They simply stopped maintaining. At 1640 UTC, similar losses occurred elsewhere. Not failure of the system, failure of the participants. At 1710 UTC, the stability window narrowed. Fewer individuals, more precise synchronization. At 1745 UTC, Layla adjusted her breathing, not to survive, to delay. At 1820 UTC, atmospheric levels dropped again. The impact was immediate. Even synchronized groups felt it. Breathing required more precision, less tolerance. At 1900 UTC, the concept of stability collapsed, not instantly, gradually. At 1930 UTC, groups began to shrink, not by decision, by failure. At 2010 UTC, the acoustic signal extended again, 80 seconds, then repeat, still perfect. At 2100 UTC, no group remained unchanged. All had reduced, all had adjusted, all had lost members. At 2200 UTC, Layla's group numbered 8. No one spoke, no one looked at each other. There was nothing left to communicate. At 2300 UTC, another member failed. No removal was needed. They collapsed on their own. The group did not react. They adjusted. At 000 UTC, oxygen levels dropped again. The unknown gas increased. At 100 UTC, stability no longer existed, only delay. At 200 UTC, synchronization continued, not because it worked, because it failed slower. At 300 UTC, hope had been measured and found insufficient. Thanks for listening to Chapter 11, Stability Window. If you like our show, please subscribe and share with your friends and family. Hope appeared, briefly, and that made what came next worse. Chapter 12 awaits. This has been a Last Echo Archive production.